I sank deeper into my son Jason's leather couch and tried to sound cheerful when I said I could make my turkey this year. The one with sage stuffing my late wife Eleanor loved. Jason's wedding band flashed under the lights of their 12-foot tree as he shifted, bracing himself. "Dad, you won't be welcome here for Christmas." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. The room smelled like vanilla candles and new wood polish, the very things I'd paid for when Lauren said their home needed a more refined look. I looked at the silk curtains I'd bought, the hardwood I'd funded with a second mortgage, the crown molding I'd slapped on a maxed-out card. "Their own traditions," Jason added, staring at the marble coffee table I helped him choose last spring. My mouth went dry. "I see," I said, standing. I walked past family photos where my face got smaller in each frame, past a closet full of coats I'd paid to dry clean, and opened the door. "Merry Christmas," I said, and stepped into the cold. In my truck, the neighborhood glowed with lights, and I watched dads carry presents inside houses where they were wanted. Numbers rolled in my head, $2,800 every month, 5 years straight. $140,000 in change, not counting the $47,000 down payment, not counting the kitchen Lauren said was non-negotiable, not counting the new roof when the old one embarrassed the neighborhood. At the red light on Grand, I saw a young father loading gifts while his kids fogged the SUV glass with excitement. Once, that had been Jason and me, before favors turned into invoices. I pulled into my cracked driveway, the repair I never made because every spare dollar went across town. Inside, my phone rang. Lauren. I answered. Her voice was sweet and firm, the way people sound when they are used to being obeyed. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "My parents prefer a certain atmosphere for the holidays, educated conversation, art, travel. You understand." I asked what she thought I would bring to the table. "Stories about laying tile?" she said lightly. She talked about breeding, about standards, about how Eleanor had blended better and respected boundaries. The house went very quiet around me. "We're done pretending," I said, and ended the call. I set the phone on the counter and looked at my kitchen. Old stove, humming fridge, a porch light that flickered like a tired eye. The quiet felt different. Cleaner, sharper. I went to the desk and pulled a manila folder I'd been avoiding. Bank statements, mortgage papers, automatic transfers bleeding out on the 15th like clockwork. 5 years of proof that I had been buying my way into a room I'd still been kept out of. My hands stopped shaking. I could hear Eleanor's voice in my memory. Steady, practical. Do the simple thing first. I drew a breath, picked up the phone again, and knew exactly which simple thing came next. I laid the papers across my kitchen table like I was building a case against myself. Bank statements, mortgage notes, receipts with Jason's address on them, all lined up by month. The same number glared from every page, $2,800, leaving my account on the 15th, 5 years straight. I added the columns the slow way, with a pen and a cheap calculator, so I couldn't pretend I'd misread anything. Year 1, $33,600. Year 2, another $33,600. By year 3, I saw where I'd stopped buying decent shoes. Year 4, I switched to store-brand everything. Year 5, I was counting lunch meat slices. The total sat there like a brick, $143,400, not counting the $47,000 I pulled from my home equity for their down payment, or the $18,000 kitchen Lauren called non-negotiable, or the emergency utility payments during her spa months. I picked up the phone, dialed my bank, and told the woman on the line I needed to cancel a recurring transfer. She asked for the account, the security questions, the last 4. My voice didn't shake. "Effective immediately," I said when she asked about timing. She typed, paused, and said, "Done." The click in my ear felt like a lock sliding home. I hung up and just listened to the house settle. It wasn't an empty quiet. It was the kind you earn. I gathered the oldest statements first and fed them to the fireplace, page by page, watching 5 years of habit curl into ash. The room warmed my face. My hands stopped trembling. I poured an inch of the good whiskey I'd been saving and lifted it toward Eleanor's picture on the mantel. "Merry Christmas," I told her, and for once the words didn't taste like a lie. I slept hard and woke before the sun. Coffee smelled better than it had in months. I fixed the loose cabinet hinge that had creaked since October, then the wobbly chair, then the sticky back door. Small things I'd ignored while I was busy keeping another house perfect. I sat down with a clean folder and wrote in block letters on the tab, January, no transfers. I copied the final bank confirmation and clipped it inside. I made a simple budget for myself like I used to make for customers. Porch light bulb, groceries that weren't a bargain bin dare, a dentist visit I'd been putting off. Every line I wrote felt like a step back into my own life. By mid-morning, I opened a blank page on my notepad and wrote 3 lines. 1, what I give. 2, what I get. 3, what stops now. Under that last line, I wrote one word, everything, and underlined it twice. The phone buzzed across the counter. I let it. I rinsed my cup, wiped the sink, set the cup to dry upside down. There would be noise, I knew that. People who live on favors don't go quiet when the faucet turns off. But the ledger was simple now, and I had the first clean balance sheet I'd seen in 5 years. Whatever came next would have to walk through that. At 10:47 a.m. the next day, Lauren called like nothing had happened. No hello, no please. Just orders. My parents land at 2. Alaska Air, Flight 447, Carousel 3. You have the truck? Pick them up. I could hear her nails tapping the granite I'd paid for. I said, I'll take care of it, and hung up. At 2:15 p.m., I wasn't circling the airport. I was in my chair with a mug of Earl Grey and the Sunday paper. The phone buzzed. I let it ring. It buzzed again. I finished the crossword. It buzzed again. I organized the junk drawer I'd ignored for months. By 3:30, the buzzing came in waves. Lauren, then an unknown number, then Lauren again. I powered off my cell and unplugged the landline. The house went quiet in a way that felt like a clean floor. At 4, I made a grilled cheese and heated tomato soup. I sat at my table and ate like a man who didn't owe anyone a ride. Somewhere across town, 2 people in nice coats stared at a baggage carousel and wondered where their driver had gone. At 5 sharp, my front door shook under heavy fists. Not a knock. Pounding. I set down my tea and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw 3 faces packed tight on my porch. Victor Morton, red with anger. Elaine, pinched and furious. And Lauren, mascara smeared, mouth already moving. I opened the door and stepped back, but not far. Victor pushed past me like he owned the place. What's wrong with you? He shouted. We stood at that airport for hours. Elaine followed, scolding me about barbaric behavior toward older people. Lauren brought up the rear, voice sharp. You humiliated us. Do you know what that looked like? I said I'd take care of it, I answered. I did. Victor jabbed a finger close to my chest. You have no idea who you're crossing. I have connections. Business, media, social. There will be consequences. Is that a threat? I asked. It's a promise, he said. You don't leave an elderly couple at an airport and walk away clean. This is my house, I said, and opened the door wide to the night. Leave. Elaine tried a cool smile. Dennis, Andrew, be reasonable. I am, I said. Out. They moved, but slowly like the air was thick. At the threshold, Victor turned. You'll regret this. People will hear. I expect they will, I said, and shut the door. The lock clicked. The house grew still. My tea was lukewarm, but I drank it anyway. I felt a tiny flicker of worry. Spokane is small and gossip moves fast, but it faded under something steadier. They wanted public. Fine, public it would be. I washed the plate in the pan. I wiped the counter. Then I pulled a legal pad from the drawer and wrote 3 headers. Dates. Amounts. Proof. Under dates, I listed the months I'd covered emergencies. Under amounts, I wrote the mortgage figure again in big block numbers. $2,800.60. Under proof, I wrote what I already had. Bank statements, the cashier's check for the down payment, the kitchen invoice, the roof receipt, the utility payments, screenshots of Lauren's posts bragging about dinners out on my dime. If Victor wanted consequences, he could have them, just not the kind he imagined. Tomorrow, I would print, highlight, and stack the truth. Tonight, I would sleep. I opened the Spokane Review 3 days later and saw my old company headshot staring back at me under a headline that called me the man who abandoned an elderly couple during a holiday storm. Storm? It had been 52 and sunny. The piece quoted Victor and Elaine as if they were helpless tourists and hinted that I was unstable. I read it twice, then a third time, tracing the byline with my thumb. Emily Sharp, lifestyle editor. I set the paper beside my coffee and walked to my desk. If they wanted public, they would get facts. I turned on my laptop and started with what I knew. Victor Morton, retired bank manager, country club member, treasurer of a business group, easy to find. Elaine's social media was a parade of charity luncheons and lake weekends. Lauren's timeline logged dinners out on the same days my transfers hit, plus a bright "so excited to host Christmas" post. Then I checked Jason's LinkedIn and saw a fresh connection. Emily Sharp. Pattern found. I didn't write a rant. I made a record. I printed 5 years of bank statements and highlighted each $2,800 transfer in yellow. I added the cashier's check for the $47,000 down payment, the $18,000 kitchen invoice Lauren said was non-negotiable, the roof receipt, utility payments marked emergency, and emails asking me to float this month. I screenshotted Lauren's restaurant posts and matched them to dates I paid their bills. I clipped the article and marked the margins. Weather 52 degrees Fahrenheit, false, not stranded, family pickup, erratic, missing context. By evening, I had 12 identical packets stacked on my table. Cover sheet, statements, receipts, screenshots, and the newspaper piece with my notes. On the cover, I typed 5 years of support, a timeline. I checked Lauren's public event again. Christmas Eve, dinner for 12, Kendall Yards, 6:30 p.m. Perfect. I pressed my navy suit, the one I wore to Eleanor's funeral, and set out my tie, wallet, and a fresh pen. I rehearsed 3 sentences in a low voice at the kitchen sink so I wouldn't improvise. State the amounts, state the pattern, state that it ends. No drama, no shouting, just a ledger closed. I packed the packets into my old briefcase, the leather still good at the handle, and placed it by the door. Then I cleaned the table, took out the trash, and set the kettle for tea. Before bed, I opened the article one more time and stared at my photo. For years, I had traded silence for access and gotten neither. Tomorrow, I would walk into a room that told me I did not belong and speak in the only language that room respected, numbers. I turned off the lights, checked the lock twice, and lay down with the kind of calm that comes when the math is finished and the plan is simple. I parked across from Jason and Lauren's glowing house at 6:45 p.m. Christmas Eve. Cars lined the curb, laughter floated through the windows, and the whole place looked like a catalog I'd unknowingly financed. The front door was unlocked, of course. I stepped inside, briefcase in hand. 12 faces turned toward me at the dining table. Lauren froze with a wineglass midair. Jason went pale. Victor and Elaine stared as if a stranger had wandered into their theater. "Good evening," I said, setting the briefcase on the marble sideboard I'd helped them choose. "You need to leave," Lauren snapped, voice brittle. I clicked the latches, lifted the lid, and began placing packets, one in front of each guest, clockwise around the table. 5 years of support, I said, steady. 60 mortgage payments at $2,800, a $47,000 down payment, an $18,000 kitchen, utilities and emergencies when asked. The totals are highlighted. Paper rustled, eyes dropped, expressions shifted from polite to confused to stunned. "This can't be right," a man in a gray sweater murmured, running a finger down the columns. "The dates line up with his transfers," a woman in pearls said, frowning at the yellow marks. I placed the Spokane Review article in the center. 3 days ago, this ran. It says I abandoned an elderly couple in a holiday storm. That day was 52 and sunny. The couple were my in-laws, arriving for a dinner I was told I couldn't attend. Victor's face reddened. "You're twisting things," he said. "Stress, context." "Context is in front of you," I answered. Elaine tried for calm. "This is a family matter, Andrew." "It became public when you put my name in the paper," I said. "So we'll stay with public facts." I tapped a packet. 60 payments. Screenshots showed dinners out on nights I covered your bills. The down payment check. The kitchen invoice Lauren called non-negotiable. A charity friend of Elaine's turned to Lauren. "You let him pay all this and then ran a story smearing him?" Lauren tried to smile. "He offered. It's more complicated." "I offered help," I said, "not humiliation." Jason finally spoke, voice small. "Dad, I didn't know about the article." I looked at him. "Lauren knew. Victor made calls, and you told me I wasn't welcome because I didn't fit your atmosphere." The room quieted in a hard way. Someone flipped to the last page and whistled softly at the total. I didn't look. I already knew the number. It had lived in my bones for years. "Here's the only part that matters tonight," I said. "This ends. My money, my silence, my place at the edge of my own family. It all ends here." I closed the briefcase and straightened my tie. "Enjoy your dinner. It's the last one I'll ever pay for. I turned and walked out. Behind me, voices rose at once. Questions, accusations, Victor's bluster cracking, Elaine's explanations fraying, guests demanding why they weren't told. The sound followed me into the cold, like a door finally unlatched. On the sidewalk, the air felt clean and sharp. I didn't need to argue anymore. Numbers were talking now, and they would keep talking long after I was gone. The certified letter came in March, hand-delivered with a green return receipt that felt heavier than paper. Notice of default. It read in block type, 3 missed payments, $8,400 past due, 14 days to cure, or the bank would move to foreclose on the house I helped buy. I set it beside my coffee and watched the steam rise. The phone had been noisy for weeks. Unknown numbers, long voicemails, a few texts from Lauren that ping-ponged between indignation and begging. But I'd learned to live with quiet, and I wasn't trading it back. On Thursday evening, Jason knocked. He looked 10 years older than Christmas Eve. Creased suit, tired eyes, the brave face people wear to funerals and bank offices. He stepped into my living room and blinked at the fresh paint, the new chair, the fixed porch light. "Nice place," he said, softer than I expected. "It's what happens when you spend your own money on your own life," I told him, and offered coffee. He apologized, first for Christmas, then for the article, then for letting Victor and Elaine talk about me and about Eleanor like we were props. He said he hadn't known about the paper until it landed, that he'd seen the stacks I laid out and couldn't shake the math. "Over 200 grand, he whispered. 237,468, I said. "The number sits where my ribs meet." He asked how to fix it. "You can't fix what's gone," I said. "You can change what you do next." He swallowed. "Could you help us catch up? Just this once? I'll sell the car, I shook my head. "You're a grown man. Sell the house if you have to. Buy what you can carry. Get work that pays the bills. Cut the show and keep the life." Silence stretched between us, not hostile, just true. "Did I lose you?" he asked finally. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You gave me away. There's a difference." He nodded, eyes wet. "Can you forgive me?" "I did in December," I answered. "Forgiveness means I'm not angry. It doesn't mean I start paying again or forget how public the lie was. If you want a relationship, you build it from the studs, respect first, and the next time anyone tells you I don't fit at your table, you'll remember who acted like family when it cost them." He stood a little straighter then, like a man feeling the weight and deciding to carry it. At the door he paused. "I was proud of you that night," he said. "Embarrassed and mad, but proud." After he left, I poured a short whiskey and stepped onto the porch. Spokane had that early spring smell, wet dirt, cold air, something new trying the door. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Ruth. "Sunday dinner? The boys want to show you their science projects." I typed back. "Wouldn't miss it." Real family, I've learned, is the people who set a plate because they want you there, not because you paid for the table. If this story hit home, tap like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening. The next chapter's waiting, just to the left.